Welcome to Breakaway, the minor hockey podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Wilbur, founder of the Coaches site. And with me, as always, is the OMHA's managing director, Mr. Ian Taylor. Ian, it's been a minute. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm great, Aaron. Great to connect with you again. We're into November. Hockey is rocking and rolling.
It is rocking and rolling.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, so things are good. Now, how about you? Your little guys back on the ice?
Yeah, we're cruising. We got so I'm actually going to be out your way in a couple of weeks, but we
Yep.
have our first jamboree. So the Vancouver Giants of the Western League. I haven't been to it. I've just heard about it, and apparently it's awesome. So they pick a Sunday and they do a jamboree with initiation teams, and they let the kids get to come out through the smoke machine and the mascots on the ice and all this. So I'm a little
Fantastic.
choked. I'm gonna miss that, but he's pretty geeked up about it. So yeah, no, our season's rolling. And how about your season? I know you and I were exchanging texts over the weekend. You had a pretty cool experience watching your boy behind the bench.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, it was. I was up in the Sioux. My son Brendan coaches with the Greyhounds in the OHL, and my wife and I went up for the weekend, and kind of rolled into a couple of cool things. One, Joe Thornton played in the NHL for about 20 years or what. He was a Sioux Greyhound, played there for 2 years. Yeah, and they retired his number 19. So that was a big deal, and the city was pretty excited about that, and a full house for his jersey retirement, and the Hounds head coach John Dean, he's actually away out east at the World Under 17 Challenge, so he's coaching out there. So Brendan had his debut running the bench, and they were successful. So it was a great weekend for us, for him, for the team, and it was how you would write the script for sure.
That's what a cool experience. Obviously,
Cool.
a super proud dad moment. And
Yeah.
you know, I was thinking about this. Like, I was in Grand Forks, North Dakota last month, and we got to take, and it was the icebreaker for the NCAA hockey season, and we were supporting a clinic down there with the high school coaches. But it's like, you know, I would never go to, like, we wouldn't go on a family vacation to Grand Forks, North Dakota. No,
Right.
not throwing shade at Grand Forks, North Dakota, but we just wouldn't. But it was amazing to go there and experience it through the hockey culture, because there's such a rich history there. I mean, so many players have cut their teeth with that program. The rink is the Taj Mahal of hockey rinks. It's so over the top, I can't even explain it. But I was thinking about what would be the other places that, you know, I might not get a chance to visit, that are a little bit out of the way, but I'd love to go see it, just purely based on the hockey culture. And Sault Ste. Marie was top of the list. Like, I just know anybody that grew up there, you know.
Yep.
The list of people, you know, the players, coaches, GMs, people that are, you know, high ranking people in the game, players that have come through the Greyhounds program, Thornton, Gretzky, just to name a few.
That's it.
I mean, there must be a real buzz on game night, just walking into that building.
Well, it's you know, it's the show in town, right? So, and it's their team, and you really get that sense from not only the number of people that attend, but when you go in, and you know, something my wife said to me, it's like everyone's wearing Greyhound stuff. So there's a real identity about it. There's a real community about it, and yeah, it's you know, I'd never been before last year. We'd gone up a few times now, and you just get that again, that sense of community. People, you know, when you say you're up there for, you know, to watch hockey, and you're, you know, again, I guess we're attached to the team in some way, and you go, you know, at a restaurant or whatever, and it's just people, you know, they're just, oh, it's so great you're up here, you know, like a real, I mean, community. I keep coming back to that word of why that's so important, and then the hockey's great. I mean, they've got a great facility. They do a great job, and I think I think there's also, as you say, players are proud, and this would happen at a lot of junior or college
Sure.
programs. You're proud of where you've come from. You're proud of the role they've played in your kind of not only hockey development but personal development. Right? These are young guys playing and growing up away from home.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that whole, they do a great job, and and Joe Thornton, credit to Joe. What a, like, he's uh, I met him. I saw him
No
at
way.
the rink interacting with the staff. He spent the whole
Yeah.
day with the team, from morning skate to lunch to sitting in PK meetings. Had his family there in the evening, back with the players after the game. Just so uh, just I mean, everything I saw from him was just what you see is what you get. And and his folks were there, and anyway, it was
Oh,
it was
so
really
cool.
cool. It was really cool. It was really well done. And credit to him. I think he, again, as an observer, he maximized that whole moment. Which is really awesome. His line that he ends with, and I saw this in his retirement video, but he also said it during his speech, was, you know you, you know if you're looking for me, you know where to find me. I'll be at the rink. And that's his wrap up, and it's so on point.
That's awesome. What a
Yeah,
cool experience. And the Greyhounds
yeah.
got the 2 points. They got the win, so that's a nice little cherry on top as
We'll take
well.
that. We'll always take that.
Yeah. But today, Ian, we have
Yep.
a return guest on this show. We are going to be
Yeah.
joined by Sheldon Kennedy, who I think is one of the great Canadians. With the work that he's done and the dedication he's demonstrated in his life to create
Yep.
safer environments, both through in sports, but also at the workplace. And fair to say that right now is a little bit of there's some tension around our sport and the
Yeah.
culture that exists. I'm just curious. I mean, the OMHA has had a long-standing relationship with the Respect Group, which Sheldon is a co-founder of.
Yep.
How has that relationship benefited the experience that players enjoy and volunteers enjoy through the OMHA?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've to your point about our relationship with Respect Group. I it seems like it was not that long ago. Sheldon and Wayne McNeil, Sheldon's partner, came into our offices, and we're talking about the Respect in Sport Activity Leader program. So that was the online version of Speak Out, and a lot of people will be familiar with that course when it first came out.
Yeah,
Um, but when I think about it, we're talking, this was like 10, 12 years ago. Like, it's been a while.
it
and
has. Yeah.
and again, talking about what, the essence of people and what they're about. Sheldon is one, he's the same guy who walked into our office that day, and he's the same guy that he would sit down with us, in an office or out at lunch or whatever, as he is, going and speaking in front of Parliament, or speaking down in the U.S.
Yeah.
in front of Congress. This is like, one is the extent of his impact, both in, like I say, dealing with, minor hockey to government. And he's the same guy. Like that's, I can't say that enough. So so the impact is, he's dedicated his life to, ensuring positive sport experiences, and positive culture, and
Yeah.
safety, and a safe space for people to do those things that they love. But you know, I think the other thing I would say about Sheldon is, um, he he is all about, he's positive. He wants that great experience for everybody. It's not about um, um, what happened to him. It's about how does he help the
Yeah.
experience of all those next people. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I can't say enough about how selfless and how genuine he is. And I'm trying not to use these words as cliches, Aaron. Like when I say genuine, like you know, it's the best word I can use to describe him, quite honestly. And he lives it. He lives it every day, every day. So it's interesting. Like we've talked a lot about challenges in hockey, but it's challenges in sport, it's challenges in school, it's challenges in society. And one of the things he said to us before was, it's not about giving hockey the stick, like hitting hockey, like hockey is bad. It's not about that at all. It's really about what's great about our sport, what's great about all sport, and again, how do we just make sure that we're providing people with tools and resources and guidance in terms of making great experiences. So it all ends up in such a um, great purpose. And I think maybe that's another way of saying what his purpose. I mean, this guy was an NHL hockey player, like legitimate, right? Like, and you would say his greatest purpose was not playing the game of hockey. It's doing what he's doing now, which is saying something.
No, well, I'll tell you what, just personally, in two thoughts. The one thing that
Yeah.
impresses me about Sheldon is, um, he's received so many awards and
Mm,
recognition for the work that he's done, and it's all deserved.
sure.
He could have hung him up a long time ago. Like he
Totally.
could have rode off into the sunset and been, kind of this iconic Canadian. We all know the story. We all
Yep.
appreciate what he's been through and how he's flipped the script and done good. But he could have walked away, but he's still doing it. Like he's
Yeah.
still fighting the fight. He's still on the front lines. He's not in the background. He's in the trenches. And I think that is so admirable. And, I was thinking about this coming into today's conversation. So as like I coach my little guy um,
Right.
here in Squamish, BC. We're a small community. I run our U7 program. So we got about 48 kids in the program. And I know that I'm going to be connected to this group for, I don't know, like the next 10 years. And I've coached for a
Right.
long time. This is the first time this has hit me though. I'm like, I think that my little guy, Austin, is a pretty good kid. But you know
Right.
what? He has bad days sometimes. I think I'm a pretty good guy. But you know what? I
Right.
have bad days too sometimes. And I'm like, over the course of this relationship, because we're such a small community, we're going to be connected with all these families, all these kids, and we're going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly at times over this time. And I think about like, okay, the environment that we're creating in hockey, are we forcing kids and families to put on a mask when they're having bad days? Or are we
Sure.
creating an environment where they can come and they can wear it and say, hey, I'm allowed to have a bad day here. And I'm still going to be accepted, and I'm going to get the support I need. And like I said, I've been coaching a long time. It's the first time that's really dawned on me. So I think that that's why.
Wow.
And I don't have all the tools in my toolkit right now. I need to acquire them, and I think that's why the work that Sheldon does, these conversations are so important, because it's the only way that myself and other coaches and volunteers are going to acquire the tools to create that environment where everybody can just come in, and when they're having their bad days, they can wear them and get the support that they need and deserve. So exciting conversation coming up. We will be right back with Sheldon Kennedy, co-founder of the Respect Group. Welcome back. We are pleased to be joined by Sheldon Kennedy, co-founder of the Respect Group. Sheldon, how are we doing?
Pretty good, Aaron. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Listen, I was out in Alberta a couple of weeks ago. We were visiting Hockey Alberta, and across the parking lot from their head office was a brand new building that had just taken form, and we learned that it was called the Sheldon Kennedy Center of Excellence. Congratulations! What an honor. B, can you just shed some light on what the center is all about?
Yeah, you bet. And it's good to be with you and Aaron, you and Ian today. And yeah, we've been working on that building. It's right on the campus of the Polytech, the Red Deer Polytech. school. The Alberta Hockey's on the campus as well in the Gary W. Harris building, and just across the parking lot is the new, I guess, newly named or new building, the Sheldon Kennedy Center of Excellence, and it's basically built off the concept of integrated practice model that we first built in Calgary. So, it's really about the investigation, the understanding um, around the issues of childhood abuse, but also mental health. And it's really a community approach to social issues. And I think that it's our best defense, to tackle these issues. I mean, most of the individuals that we're seeing, have connections to multiple organizations that don't work together. It's a very complicated, I guess, room of mirrors, if you may, to try to navigate. And what we've done is we've really tried to bring it all together. We have brought it all together. We'll have 17 long-term mental health beds for kids under 16 years old that would present at the hospital. And most of the time, there's only maybe 2 beds in there. So,
Yeah.
but we felt it being critical being on the campus because it's, a lot of kids don't ever feel that they're good enough after suffering or being in the types of upbringings that they've been in, or have been impacted the way they have, that they belong in a post-secondary school. And so it's critical that they're there, and that we can help them move through that. But also, it's not just about who's coming through our doors. It's the Center of Excellence is built on research and data, and we are going to make sure that we are collecting data from all the agencies to be able to really connect the dots and teach those learnings that we're able to find, and to say the new nurses, the new social workers, the new teachers, the kids going into policing, to really have them understand what is integrated practice. And I think if we look at the sports world and we look at hockey, I mean,
Yeah.
we've been teaching integrated practice since the start. It's basically, how do we work together as a team? How do we communicate as a team to get the ultimate result as a group? And to me, that's what we're trying to teach. But if you look at a lot of the agencies and organizations, it's not taught. And we know that well in the sporting world, that, to become a team is a taught skill, and it's a
Yeah.
practice skill. And that's really the concept that we're trying to bring into the public sector and into the sector where legislation had them believing forever that if they shared any information, they could be fired and potentially sent to jail. Well, the reality is what we know today, and what the legislation really states is that we are allowed to share information in the best interest of the child. And we will get the best results for that child and family and our community if we do work together. So it's really a focus on teaching, bringing the principles of sport and teamwork into that mold and into that fold, and really focus on and create a practiced approach on how do we come at it as a team instead of as an individual to achieve the goals we want to achieve.
I think one thing that stood out to me was that, I would, any family, any kid, any person that has gone through, abuse in their life, for them to come forward, I mean, just what a courageous act. And, you could have called this center a whole host of things, but you called it the Center of Excellence. And how important is that vernacular, just to maybe removing the stigma that comes with somebody stepping forward and sharing their truth. And I think probably just painting a picture that there's another side to this where you can be excellent and where you can come out of it and have a great life and get to the other side.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, Aaron. And I think my approach and our approach at Respect Group, and our mindset has always been to focus on, the positive. right?
Yeah.
Even though we're dealing with a lot of negativity, I mean, we need to focus on making people better. We need to give solutions. We need to, focus on the high percentage of individuals. I mean, what I know is that, you know, I knew who I could be, but I never felt that or
Yeah.
believed that I deserved to be that. And so I think, the Center of Excellence is really trying to position these issues. And a lot of times the issues that we're talking about are always had to, they were always stuck in the basement. We've got all other health issues sitting up, and we're not scared to talk about them and highlight them. And meanwhile, when you look at some of the leading contributors to, the social the social, I guess, impacts that our cities are riddled with today, whether you look at homelessness, whether you look at addiction, whether you look at a lot of times crime. I mean, you can connect the dots for the majority of that right back to early childhood traumas, early childhood upbringings. The way people have, the way their lives have unfolded. And we know that today. We know that well. And I think we know better today. And now it's about an understanding of being able to teach it and to be able to change the way we practice to get up to speed with what we know. And so, to me, it's trying to break a difficult issue down, a sensitive issue down to the lowest common denominator, so that we can start building up and moving forward. And I think sometimes when we deal with issues that are very complicated and hard to understand, and there's a lot of emotion attached to them as well. We try to use big words, and we try to start at letter K, when the reality is we're really at letter A. And to me, if we can break that down and we get people moving down, the path of learning and understanding, it's going to build a confidence around an area where, I think is ultimately our goal. I mean, our goal at the OMHA from day one, and in hockey and in sports and society, has been to empower the bystander. And basically, that's our goal. Our goal is to empower people to step up and step in and not be scared of issues that predominantly carry a significant amount of fear, worry, and emotion with it.
Sheldon, that comment of empower the bystander, it's something I don't know what, since we first connected, and I was saying to Aaron earlier, it seems like it was only a few years ago, but I know it was much more than that. It was probably 10 years ago or more. And that's been the message that you've had throughout. It was again, let's emphasize the positive, as you said earlier, and empower the bystander. So, but we're at a time when people are questioning being involved in sport, but specifically in our sport, in hockey, right? So you've got young kids. What would you say to parents who are, I guess, on the fence of putting their kids into hockey? Like, is this, is it they're concerned about, ultimately they're concerned about their kids' safety and the experience they're going to have, right? What do you say to them? What would your message be to those people?
Well, my message would be, I mean, I think, drive down to the OMHA office and come on in and sit down and have a chat with yourself or Kevin or anybody on your team, and
Yeah.
see the commitment that's there, to, do everything in your power to make the game as safe as it has. And you've been committed to that for a long time, from what I've seen. And I think, as an individual, as a father now, I have a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 27-year-old.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot since my daughter, who's 27 now, since she was in our lives. I mean, I've learned so much more even from then. And, it's about taking personal responsibility. right? It's not
Yeah.
just about organizational responsibility. I mean, organization has responsibility, right? Coaches have responsibility, players have responsibility, and parents have responsibility. We all have a responsibility. I feel that the more confident we can make ourselves in understanding the basics, we don't have to create and become PhDs in this space unless we choose to. But I mean, if we can really understand the basics and know clearly what is, what isn't, what should, what shouldn't, it is going to allow us to be more comfortable in any situation that we're in, not just in the game of hockey. And I think that, there's been a stigma or a fear or, a systemic way of thinking that, how dare we ask questions, right?
Yeah.
How dare we ask questions of why, or, what do you have in place to protect
Right.
kids? And to me, that's where we have to ask those questions. As a parent, I think you're doing your children a disservice when you don't ask those questions and hold that team or that association or organization or community or whatever it is accountable to show you, right? And so then they should be able to show you. From what I know today, within, if we're talking about the OMHA today, or whatever sport it is, I mean, they should be able to show you step by step and prepare and be prepared to show you that, because to me, those are the questions that we need to ask. And I feel that, if we don't have our heads in the sand, if we don't get caught up in the, my kid could go all the way, living through your child, and we stay and keep things in perspective of being a parent and watch it as a parent and be there to support our children, and have the confidence to know, when somebody's crossing the line, or and being able to go and have a knowledgeable conversation, or to confront or to step up and step in different situations. I think that is what we need to be doing, regardless whether it's in hockey, school, whatever. And I
Yeah.
think, to me, that is, I believe, where we need to get to. And I think, we're we've done, a lot of people have taken training and stuff, but I still think we're stuck at that spot for the most part. There's no question that we're in a better space,
Right.
right? There's no question that in regards to these issues. And yeah, we see them more because I think people are more comfortable to come forward with it, right? And but I feel we need to get over the hump of, if I say something or ask a question, my son or daughter, or my child will be punished for that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is, there's a fear there, and I think, somehow we need to take the risk to ask those questions, and instead of having the fear and having it silence us because of that fear.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
No, and I think that's such a great point, Sheldon. I want to jump on that because I think the other part that I've experienced is that sometimes coaches or leaders in our sport, they're scared to speak up or maybe admit that um, they need to change because they have a fear that if they put their hand up or that they speak out loud, that they're going to be, canceled, or that they're going to, maybe be put in a tough spot. And I'll give you an example. So, I mean, you took part in the Beyond the Board Summit, the event that Hockey Canada put on in Calgary. And sort of the theme of that was around toxic masculinity that exists in hockey. And in the off season, I was together with some buddies that all played the game, that had all gone on to, coaching or, various careers in hockey. And we love the game. We love the game. Our kids play hockey. And this term toxic masculinity came up, and people were like, at first it was like, how dare they? That doesn't exist. And, but slowly through conversation, as the night winds down, we'll call it sort of campfire talk. We all started sharing stories, and it was kind of a safe place. There's no cell phones on. And I would say, you know what, when I was a young coach, I did this, and in hindsight, I wish I didn't, but I learned this because this is how I came up in the game. And everybody starts going around and sharing their stories of saying, like, this was the language that was used when I was in the locker room, so I allowed it to happen when I was the coach. And, this kind of stuff happened on the bus when I played junior hockey. So, it just seemed like we call it a rite of passage when I was coaching junior hockey. And, the conversation turned to how it's cyclical, right? And at some point that maybe having a term like toxic masculinity, which, if we're being honest, is uncomfortable, you kind of need that to kind of jolt everybody and wake everybody up to say, hey, we got to stop the cycle and we have to develop some healthy habits and tools to carry forward. And again, I think that, that's why it's so important to have these conversations, because otherwise, we're just going to keep doing what we've always done. And so my question would be, like, how important are these conversations, whether it's on a big scale or the ones that you're involved in and the work that you, but also just on our local minor hockey associations, just for people to get together and have an open forum where nobody gets judged, but they can just talk about what they've seen, what they're going through, and what they aspire, how they aspire to lead moving forward.
Well, I think the key, and I always talk about, if I can relate it back to, it's about practice, right? So you guys, you threw it out there, you took a risk, it wasn't a perfect structured conversation. It was just a conversation, and it was unscripted, and people build off it. And, and I look at that. And then when I talk about being better in this space, it's about being able to practice being better in this space. And I look at it like, the first time I went to the counselor, to deal with, all of my stuff, she asked me how I felt, and I'm like, good, it's good. Everything's really good. Meanwhile, frick, it's like, I've been in 7 treatment centers, psych wards, you name it. Like, things weren't good, but it was a patent answer. It's how I always answered. And, the more I went, the more I practiced it, the more I took a risk to share or to get out of my comfort zone. And it's not about sharing, and I don't think we're not asking people to lay out all their dirty, dark secrets. It's just, I think it's just be willing to be uncomfortable, to learn what a better way of how to do things today. Right. And we are going to be what we were taught. I mean, think about, like, I haven't been to school. Well, I'm 54, so I graduated at 19. And, whatever.
We don't like math on this show, Sheldon.
That is, yeah, exactly. But I mean, if you think about it, how do I still know what 2 + 2 is?
Right.
Yeah.
It's what I learned.
Right.
It's what was ingrained in me time and time again. Right. So, somebody says 2 +, well, it's 4. Right. So what you were talking about, we are going to be, unless we dedicate ourselves to do it different, we will be what we were taught.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, it's a conscious decision to not be that. Right. And we got to make a conscious decision to be different. And some people could have the same coach and had a total different experience than the next person, or had a family that was at home that, brought things back into perspective and went on, and, and the impact happening here wasn't the same as somebody that may not have had any support at home or whatever it might be. So, but I'm in full agreement that, it's a skill, and change takes time, but it takes commitment, and it takes, when I want to change doing something, I have to practice that change. Right. And the more I practice that change, the better I get, the more comfortable I feel in it. But, it's not going to be, I tried it for a practice and I'm good. It's no good. Doesn't work here. Right. It's about, committing to that and not expect everybody else to change with you. But to me, I learned I had to change myself, and then I had to walk the walk, and then everybody else, started to say, hey, like, geez, like, he's really changed. Right. Like, so, it's not about perfect. I don't see and expect, everybody in the world to be perfect. But, I think what we're asking, or what I would like to ask people, is, just commit to a better way around what we know is a better way today, right? We
Yeah.
know, we know the way it was in the 90s and 80s, and you know wasn't good, right? So there's a lot of people that played in that era that are sometimes coaching, and it's unless we've committed to be different, most of the times, what we learned in that space will come across in how we try to teach.
Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
yeah.
No, I think here's my takeaway from that. And I think this is so important. It's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. And my concern sometimes is
Yeah.
people feel like they're in a position where if they're not perfect, they're going to get chastised for. And it's like, intent matters. Intent matters and commitment matters, but it's not going to be. It doesn't mean it's always going to be a smooth trajectory. It's good. This is going to take work from everybody.
Yeah, and it's
Well,
okay to make a mistake. Like,
I mean, and Sheldon, in our conversations, we've always talked about, and you mentioned about emphasizing the positive, and that doesn't mean not being honest, or not, or kind of trying to glaze over bad stuff, right? But you've also said, the way forward isn't to hit hockey with a stick. I know we've had that conversation lots of times, right? Like
Yeah.
that hockey's bad. It's here are all the positive things, but here's the way to make it better, and here's the way to influence our kids and our leaders and our communities. It really is integrated, and sometimes it sounds overly simplified, but it isn't. Um, or maybe there's simple aspects of it that we shouldn't be, um, um, Aaron, as you say, kind of fearful of, right?
Yeah.
There's been so much good work, like there's been so much education, and Sheldon, you've spoken to it. Activity leader, we have, um, parents in the OMHA. One parent takes a course, and that doesn't, you don't leave those courses as an expert, right, Sheldon? I mean, but you've been exposed to some information, you've been exposed to some resources, and and Sheldon, stuff you're doing now. I mean, you've done some work with the Chicago Blackhawks have been in the news again. You've worked with junior teams. So talk about that, and I want to make sure I get the words right. I think it was a team charter. Is that what it was called, or a code of conduct? Can you talk
yeah,
about that a little bit? And because I think that takes some of that theory, I guess, and where applies it to where rubber hits the road. And I think that's a real part of this kind of conversation too, right?
yeah, you bet, Ian. The Yeah, I mean, the charter is really a concept, and like, for lack of a better word, or to keep it simple, is level two of you
Right.
know of where we're at with these issues. I mean, like, for level one, it was mandatory training, and that was a huge step, like,
Sure.
huge step. And I think, there's the people want more, and that's what they're telling us. They want more. They want more tools.
Right.
And so, what I heard, and through our journeys, and was, and I remember, I was we were in a meeting with Gary Bettman and Bill Daly, and it was just a conversation. I believe it was a couple days after the Board of Governors meetings in Florida, where we had presented the Respect in the Workplace, all the Board of Governors and all the
Right.
teams, the training in the NHL. But I remember it was Gary was talking about, yeah, is there a way that, like, we got to get this into the locker room? And I'm like, yes, I know, we got to figure that out. And so we really, in the workplace, we had created a charter, and the charter basically is a facilitated guide to be able to create your own respect charter for your team in the workplace. And it wasn't digital. It was just, it was a downloaded PDF or whatever at the time. So what we thought is, well, let's try to build off this. And so we focused on trying to build the concept of a team charter. And so the concept of it is how do we have training at the front end, which we do? How do we lead into a team being able to have structured guidance, yet have it be personalized to fit their team? And basically, it's about respect, all aspects of respect, right? When we look at respect, I mean, it's about how do we treat one another? Doesn't matter our backgrounds, doesn't matter our gender, doesn't matter our age. It's about respect. And I think, when we look at that, it's like, how do we get every voice on that team, coaches and players, to contribute to a respect charter that not only lays out the guidelines for us as a team to be able to live by throughout that season, but also be able to hold one another accountable. What are our expectations? What does respect really mean to us? And how do we live up to that? And how do we stand for that? Because I think, we talk about the word respect. We throw it out there. But we never really try to communicate it. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we have in this space is to be able to actually communicate in this space, right? And it's not about, it can be whatever, but it's not just about, abuse, or it's about respect. It is about communicating and starting to communicate and creating a guided, facilitated course that's not cumbersome, but that can be doable, age appropriate. You can include the parents. Maybe the parents have their own respect charter, right? And so now what you've done is you've created accountability in this space, and you can always revisit. Say it's number 6 today, team, we're going to visit number 6 that we've laid out in our charter, right? Whatever that is, we will always, make sure that we listen with intent to all concerns of the team. And whatever it might be, whatever they might come up with. But it's being able to take, say, a area that was important to that group, and to be able to communicate on it further, which allows us to practice, which we talked about earlier, right? We need to practice. Yeah. So, our goal is and where we're at and what we've done is we've got, we got your training, we got your baseline training. We're now leading it into the charter work, followed out by, we're creating that as we speak, a mental health resiliency app, which is going to be your micro learning, macro learning type of concept coming out of the back end. But we have every Western Hockey League team is going through the charter as we speak, with great results. Individuals of their team run it, and we've digitalized the facilitator. We've worked alongside with an expert named Tom Clentus out of Chicago, who's a high school principal, but also has a PhD in EDI facilitation. And we worked with Stan Bowman, and Stan was instrumental in helping us create the charter. Because if you look at the charter and you look at the Chicago, what happened in Chicago and many other cases, it's a breakdown of communication and follow through. And so, we held a charter at Trinity Western, and who's the coach at Trinity Western, both the male and female teams? Kyle Beach and Stan Moman ran a charter for their team. And think about it. Here you have somebody that was on a side that is, that's been held accountable and has lost his job because he didn't do enough. And here's somebody on the other end, Kyle, is a victim that's been impacted and significantly. And for them to try to communicate in the best interest of helping others, make sure that they understand their role and their part. It was really powerful. And I applaud both of them because both of them had to take a risk to say, we're going to come together. And Stan had to own up what he had to own up, and Kyle had to accept it. And to me, that was hugely powerful, and I applaud both of them for doing that. And and now there's another case, that another individual that's come forward in Chicago, and we'll see where that ends up. But to me, the charter, the OHL are running pilots, the Q's running pilots. To me, it takes us to level 2. It teaches us how to communicate. So now we don't only just take the training and sit with it ourselves, but now we're learning to communicate it. And to me, I think it teaches us, when we can have guidelines around these issues as a team that we all agree upon, there's a sense of accountability that comes with that for all of us, not just the players, but the coaches. And I think ultimately that's what we're trying to do. I've sat in on a couple charters, and I'll tell you what, the reality is our young people, they're way less fearful to speak about these issues. They're
For
way
sure.
more educated in this space
Right.
than we as adults are. So we need to hear from them,
Yeah.
and that's it's been good so far, Ian and Aaron, and we're excited about it.
Yeah. 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 Aaron, can I just follow up on that? I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
I,
for
I,
sure.
I think, when we talk about the charter and, um, we've all been involved in teams and coached and we've had, standards of our team, and you'll go into the rink and you'll see kids warming up and they'll have t-shirts on with some kind of, um, slogan saying team motto, whatever. And it's usually, it's usually about working hard or, again, if you're, if you're on time, you're 5 minutes late, and all these type of, you know, um, again, standards about this is how we're going to operate. But it's you, like I say, it's usually about performance or, um, again, work ethic, and these are all great things. But it's rarely about what you're talking about, Sheldon, about the standards of how we treat each other or how we treat, again, our our coaching staff, or how we treat the officials, how we treat the other team, even, right? What we say to them. Like, the concept isn't foreign. We just haven't gone into that area before.
Totally, it's not. This is not brand new. It's
Right.
just, and since I started playing the game, we always talked about the game being 75% mental.
Right.
But I mean, how much do we spend on that? Like what?
Yeah.
Like and
Great point.
to me, I mean, this is basically, it's about creating culture with intent,
Culture. Yeah.
not creating culture on a hope and a prayer.
Yeah.
Oh, if we just get this kid, or we just trade for this person, or we just, like, no, it's about being intentionally trying to build our culture.
Right.
And to me, we know, like, the research is crystal clear that when we have strong, healthy cultures within not only company settings, but team settings, our results go through the roof. So why wouldn't
Mm.
we be spending, a significant amount of time on trying to build team culture? Right. And that's what it
Yeah.
is. And that's about being okay with one another, whoever you are. Right. And to me, that's, again, it's practice. A charter for, the Oakville Bantam Pee Wee team might be different than, the Peterborough Pee Wee girls team, right? I'm sure
Sure.
they're different, but yet when you break them down, they're probably pretty, pretty, pretty similar.
Yeah.
So it's, at the end of the day, I think you're bang on with that. Ian, this is about creating winning teams. This is about, and this is, and we have to adjust this space because we can't tippy toe around it anymore and pretend and try to get the results, right? I'm a farmer. So it's like farming, every year we go out and we do the same thing. We till our land and till our land and till our land, and our neighbor, you know, they're getting huge results. Their yields are going through the roof. Well, why is that? Well, they tried something new. They put fertilizer on it. They fed that. They paid attention to it. And I think, at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. It's, we know better today, and to know better is to be intentional around it and be intentional about our culture. Don't just hope that it's going to be okay. And to create a culture, I think to create a culture, it takes everybody. It's not just the coach's responsibility. It's the coaches, it's the players, it's the managers, it's the parents, and it's that, the association, right?
Yeah,
And to
for
me,
sure.
that is how you create and change culture. And yeah, and I think, I think at the end of the day, we wanted to create something that was impactful, that was owned by the team, not somebody else doing it. It's them doing it. And that was, very, not expensive, right? To get somebody in to facilitate is not cheap. So how do we do that without having to pay that big fee, but yet get somebody like a high profile individual in the locker room? So it's, yeah, that's where we've landed. And so far it's been very well received
Yeah.
because they own it. It's
Yeah.
not us. All we're trying to do is just facilitate, and in the best way we can, to pull out of them the knowledge that they need, the team needs, to be able to create the best charter that they can. And so they own it. It's not us telling them what a charter is and what respect and what culture should be. It's them creating it. And I think that's when you have the most ownership.
Sheldon, I want to touch on two things. One, you mentioned results, and you mentioned ownership. So, we're really fortunate. We sponsor the OMHA Coach of the Month Award, and it's an incredibly cool program. And the best part is that people, mostly parents, get to write in. Like, they don't just get to say, like, we nominate Sheldon Kennedy for the Coach of the Month. They write like almost like a little bit of an essay about why that coach is deserving of this recognition. And some of the stories we get, like, they're amazing. Like, you're literally trying to figure out who gets it is so challenging, and it's also really rewarding. However, an observation I've made is that the submissions that we receive for this probably tap out at around U12. Like, it's usually the younger age groups. And it would seem that the parents, who effectively are the owners of the respective minor hockey teams, they appreciate the stuff that doesn't show up on the scoreboard a lot more at the younger age groups, but then they transition to those older age groups and maybe they stop paying attention. And I look at, say, junior hockey, where the turnover rate, and I have conversations with these coaches all the time, and they're like, hey, nobody gives a shit about the culture. They care about winning and losing. That's how I pay my mortgage. That's why I put food on my family's table, is because I win games. Like, no junior hockey coach, the owners never got up at the podium and say, hey, we let so-and-so go because, they didn't produce a good culture. It's because they didn't win, and we need results. My question is, how do we create more accountability perhaps around the owners, whether that's parents in minor hockey of their child's U15 or U18 team, at the same time with the people in, say, junior hockey, who, can say, hey, if I know a coach, and I know plenty of coaches that are great, great people, great men, they have the best of intentions, but nobody cares if they don't get the results in the standings. How do we create some accountability and some space where that gets measured, the culture gets measured, the environment gets measured, and that takes precedence over, the wins or losses?
Well, I think that people have, I think it's, there's been a distinctive separation between the two over decades. And the
For sure.
reality is there is no separation. I mean, to get more wins, is about having a healthy culture. And that's a fact. I mean, the research is crystal clear. Like, there is no, there's no arguing that. And so, but how do we create that culture? I think that's the challenge, right? And if we don't know how to create that culture, if we don't, I mean, if you think about it, like, look at how in sport in general, for the most part, we're talking about hockey today, but for the most part, for us to create culture, it was, we better get a couple guys at the trade deadline, keep an older guy on the team, but there's no intent, there's no plan around
Yeah.
building culture, right? And so if you look at when we did that CHL um, report, we were asked to do that, myself and Danielle Sauvageau and Camille Theriault. And one of the questions we asked in the Leger survey, which is online, I mean, it's not hush hush, right? But the one of the questions is we asked coaches and general managers and players whether the CHL was a competitive league or a developmental league. And it was all over the map. Nobody really knew. Some thought it was developmental. Some thought
I
it was
bet.
competitive. The players, I think, thought it was competitive, 72% of them, which is fine. But I think, let's be clear. If we're going to be developing players, which I think we're going to be doing, we need to focus on that. But part of developing players is building up that, that emotional and mental strength but also, I think when we started talking about it and when we started learning about it, it also fits in the competitive realm too, because building up that side of it, building up that culture side of it, and that, focusing on that piece of it is gonna create more wins if that's what it is. Now, to me, I think um, more than ever, we need to be uh, a teacher in that space for
Yeah.
our young people. And we need to be on the cutting edge of that. If you think of the pressure that these kids are coming into in hockey, the pressure from a lot of times parents, agents, teams, NHL, social
Yeah.
media, school. I mean, it's on and on and on, and that's a lot of pressure. And so, if we don't have the ability to communicate that and connect to that and understand about it and just chat about it with healthy feedback and constructive feedback, um, people people handle stress differently. Some people freeze, they'll never reach their potential because they're so full of anxiety and worry that they'll never get to be who they want to be. And sometimes it's just as small as being able to communicate once a week and to let them know that it's okay to communicate this, and to have an organization believe and support and invite this type of conversation and have the structure in place to be able to have this type of conversation. Because the reality is, I mean, I think that kids are coming in filled with fear and anxiety. And, to be able to get them to a place where they can perform at their best, we have to deal with that.
Um, Sheldon, just I want to go back to one thing you mentioned earlier about kids today being more open, um, more knowledgeable. I mean, kids have grown up now with a smartphone in their pocket, social media, um, but they've also had education in school about, and again, we're not even talking about sport, but in school about bad behaviors. We talk about bad behaviors, but online bullying, whatever the case may be. So why are we still if we've had this education and kids have been exposed to this again in sport, but largely in school? Where are the gaps, or why are there still gaps? Is it the communication side of it you're talking about? Is it that we're not applying it? Um,
Well, I mean, I Ian, I don't think we listen to our kids enough.
Wow.
I don't think that we allow the kids to be part of building a culture on the team.
Right.
You know, we come in and we appoint a culture,
Great.
right? We
Yeah.
don't work at a culture collectively. And I think if you look at any facilitation that ever happens, I mean, even in a workplace, a lot of times, it's the management group that says this is going to be our culture. Very rarely do we ever learn and listen and really hear from everyone. And I think that's what it is. I mean, I think, that the charter is built to listen to everybody, to get everybody's input, to give everybody a voice. And I
Yeah.
think it takes us all. But I don't think our society is built to listen to our kids. And I think when we, well, I mean, like I remember Kenny Holland was sitting in with the Oilers, and I know Kenny. He was, him and I are. He's a little bit
Drafted you.
older than me, but we come from the same era. If I didn't have to, if I didn't have to deal in this space to get my own health back, I probably would have been, in that same mindset. But I mean, he's like, oh, the players don't share players. Well, we were there over time because players are talking, and they're not sharing bad stories. They're not scared to communicate about it. They're coming up with solutions, and they communicate about it, and they can debate it. They're there, right? Already. The people that are fearful of this are, people like, in my age group
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. Us.
or
Yeah.
older or even a little bit younger. And so, you know, and I think, they came up with it, and it blew, right? Like and I'm always impressed too when I engage our young people, because it's, they are very, they've grown up with this, so it's different than us, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Totally.
and so to me, we have to include them in this conversation, and I think we can bring our adult knowledge to the table, and you know and help break down, uh, maybe some issues that need to be broken down so that they're better understood before they plop onto the charter, right? But to me, I think it's, there's a place for all of us in this. And I think as far as our young people, I think, it's about being able to ask the questions and to be able to listen. And and I think, we to me, that's the benefit, and that's how you build a culture, is to everybody feel that they have a voice. And we can't just come in and say everybody has a voice in here, now get your shit on and let's go. Sorry, I swear. But you know what I mean, like it's got to be
Totally.
practiced,
Yeah.
and we have to walk the walk, right? If everybody has a voice, let's give them a voice. And so that's where I come from, and maybe it's wrong, I don't know, but that's what I know. And for me, I just know that for me to be the best that I can be to others, I have to make sure that I show up in the best state that I can be. And that takes self, that's, I have to make sure that me as an individual is in the best place I can be so I can be the best for others, right? And that's kind of what I've had to break it down to, the lowest common denominator. Is it, you know, is there days that are better than others? Absolutely. Are there times that I have to go and, say sorry for raising my voice, or sorry for this, to my son or people that, are in my world? Absolutely. Um, do I feel bad about that stuff when if I, you know, get off track and, or whatever? Like, yeah, this is about a journey, right? It's not about being perfect. And I think, it's, I am absolutely the farthest thing from perfect in this space, but, I can tell you that I'm committed to get better on a daily basis in this area. And there's lots of things that, I'm sure for the rest of my life that, I will always want to get better at, on how I treat people, how I show up for treat people. And, ultimately, it's, I don't ever use, it's just, yeah, I have a responsibility, and, and usually it's that 24-hour rule where I can, humbly go back and say, hey, I'm sorry for what I said yesterday. And not just say sorry every day, but do something to change it to make sure it doesn't happen again, or
Right.
uh, or it's ongoing and ongoing.
That's great.
Sheldon, I want to touch on one thing. I mean, you talk about these conversations, and this is just something that I've learned over time, in talking with coaches, is that one of the ways that you can facilitate these conversations is to not have them in the locker room, is to take the team outside of the locker room. And a great example of that is somebody I consider one of the top young coaches in our game is Matt Odette with the Seattle Thunderbirds. And he talks about, they won the WHL championship last year, but I can tell you he's focused more on the culture than anything else. And he talks about, like, we've got some of the most beautiful wilderness in our surroundings here. So he's like, we take the team out of the locker room, we go have these talks out in the woods or somewhere else, because it changes the environment. And it's not just about hockey, it's about a group of people that happen to play hockey, but they coexist together for over the course of a season. So I would throw that out there for anybody listening to say, hey, like, this doesn't always have to happen in the rink. Like, sometimes change the environment, and that can really change the conversation. But I just want to close on this. You talk about the journey that you're on, and I think that all of us, whether we acknowledge it or not, we're on a journey. And if we're involved in hockey and we're fortunate to have that platform where we can impact the lives of others, especially young people. That's that's an honor. That's something that should be taken really seriously. You're obviously part of the Respect Group, amazing resource. I think most, certainly in Canada, whether we're a parent, coach, volunteer, we're familiar with it. But just in your own journey, what might be some other resources that you've come across, some other people that you've had the opportunity to meet that have maybe provided you some positive nudges along the way that you've found valuable?
Well, we've always been huge supporters of the Kids Help Phone, and they're an unreal resource for And people always say, I think people get caught up with kids, but it's anybody can call it, right? If you have questions, just and they do great work, and they're a free resource for kids that are struggling. You get a live counselor on the other end of the line, and that's one. But there's just been so many. I mean, just if I look at my daughter Ryan, who's 27, who grew up watching her dad not at his best, and I sit and see the impact I had on her as I was trying to get my life together and blah blah blah. But having her be able to get herself into a place where her and I can have a relationship, and we had to be honest with each other about and I had to apologize for who I was as a dad, and those things are important. And so there's lots of people that I mean, we do a lot of work with with Jumpstart, and I think they're doing good work in the communities, and so I don't have, I mean, a lot of times personally, it's just it's it's just people that I think have stuck with me in the bad times, because it
Yeah.
wasn't always easy to support Sheldon, right? And so it's Wayne obviously is my good friend, but at the end of the day, I needed to start walking the walk, and once I started walking the walk, well, you get more support, but including my daughter and everybody. And so again, there's lots of organizations out there that do great work in this space. We've supported the Kids Help Phone because we think it's a hugely valuable tool for all kids and adults across this country if needed in this space. And then I think just those closest friends, right? And those are the ones that I think you lean on to help guide you. So it's like you want to you're trying new things in life, and it's not always easy, and it's clumsy, and it's some days you're questioning it, and they're the ones that you can just blat on, and I'm not really looking for any feedback. Just let me blah. And those are the people I think that have helped me the most, because lots of times lots of times it's just being able to listen and not judge.
Well, what I heard there, Sheldon, was no matter what's in the rearview mirror of your life, it's never too late to start walking the walk. And I think that's really important for all of us to hear, including myself. Yeah. You know what, Sheldon? Ian and I think both of us get asked a lot about, and he touched on earlier, like, why would you want your kids to play hockey? That it's it's not a good environment for kids to grow up. And I'm always like, and I know Ian's the same way. It's like, no. Like we're like, hockey's great. Hockey's in a great spot. Like, we can't let a couple of negative news stories affect all the good and all the good people involved with their game. And I would just say, we really appreciate you joining us today, because this is what I tell people. Like, our game has people like yourself,
right?
And you're one of many that are doing the work, that are sharing a lot of great information, and that are committed to creating positive cultures and experiences for kids. So can't thank you enough for joining us today. And thanks for all the work that you continue to do, because I know you could have hung them up a long time ago and said, I'm done with this. I don't need to go on any more podcasts. I don't need to do any more speeches. But you keep doing it. You're at the front lines, man, and that's honorable. So I think on behalf of us and everybody in hockey, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both, and thank you for what you do. It's we all have a role, right? We all have a role. I'm committed to the game. I think you guys are committed to the game and making it better, and that's what it takes. So, I appreciate what you both do too. I know, Ian, we've known each other for a long time, and, we always applaud you and Kevin and the group at the OMHA for, being leaders, taking risks. That's what it's about, right? Change and growth is taking risks and commit to change. And so thank you all for that work too. And it's always a good chatting with you both.
We're good. We're a good team. It's a good team to be a part of, for sure.